Greetings, salutations, and welcome to After Action. I'm joined once again by Jack.
Hello.
It's a late night, so bear with us mildly for this particular review. But we just watched a Cherry 2000. Now, watch, don't watch.
I would say watch. If you're a fan of post-apocalyptic movies, sci-fi, kind of like 70s, 80s sci-fi, kind of goofy concept movies, or just low-budget movies if you're interested in those.
I see. That's the thing, is I don't particularly think that this is that low of a budget film, but I would still say watch as well if you want more from what little I've seen of Mad Max. If you want more Mad Max, this is along those lines, you know, in terms of that sort of post-apocalyptia.
Yeah, it's like Mad Max mixed with like a very it's like Diet Mad Max mixed with like Logan's Run or something like that.
So we're going to be getting into spoilers right off the get-go. Now that you've had our watch, don't watch, I looked at the back of the box, but I want to read the IMDb description first. In the far-off, distant future of 2017, a successful businessman travels to the ends of the earth to find his perfect woman. Oh, to find that his perfect woman is under his nose. He hires a sexy renegade tractor to find an exact duplicate of his android wife. So, in a change of things, you brought this film tonight, so why don't you read the back of the box?
All right. Well, to emphasize the post-apocalyptic aspect, in large font on the very back, there's text that says a post-Mad Max adventure attributed to Leonard Maltin, probably a film reviewer. The back description is: in the future, a man travels to the ends of the earth to find that the perfect woman is always under his nose.
Okay, so similar.
In this fun, in quotes for some reason, in this fun, attributed to Leonard Maltin, again, futuristic sci-fi adventure, Melanie Griffith is, quote, delightful and unflappable, attributed to Variety, as a futuristic bounty hunter on a mission to find a robot replicant of a rich man's short-circuited wife. Oh, that's funny. Replicant is a word that was just invented for Blade Runner.
Huh.
So,
and they're just using it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they never copyrighted it.
Yeah.
You know, Droid is actually copyrighted by Lucasfilm, the word.
Huh.
Yeah.
That makes mild sense.
When a successful businessman, Sam Treadwell, David Andrews, Fight Club... What?
Apparently, yes.
Huh. Okay. Finds that his android wife, Cherry Model 2000, Pamela Gidley, the Maze... Never even heard of that. Has blown a fuse. He hires a sexy renegade tracker, E. Johnson Griffith, to find her exact duplicate. But as they journey to replace his perfect mate... leads them into a treacherous and lawless region of the Zone, Treadwell learns the hard way that the perfect woman is made not of computer chips and diodes, but of real flesh and blood. I also like diodes included there, because that just makes me think... That just dates this movie even more.
Indeed.
You know?
Though I do have to say I'm not entirely convinced that E. Johnson is not an android. I'm still not. Even by the end of the film, I'm not convinced.
Yeah. God, her face even looks photoshopped on the front. Like, it looks like it's misaligned with her head.
It is. It is.
That's so weird.
I don't know what photo you're looking at currently, dear listener, but I will try to, at some point during this review, post a photo of the cover art. And yes, her face does indeed look misaligned. And oddly, the Cherry 2000 is not on the front of the box. Now, the Cherry 2000 is not our leading lady, but it's still weird.
Yeah, you know? Because I saw this movie once before, about 15 years ago. My dad... bought this DVD off eBay for like $5, and I remember watching it with him and being kind of confused because I see the cover and it says Cherry 2000, and I assume Griffith is Cherry 2000. I mean, she even has the red hair, but then no, it's the robot.
Yeah, cherry red. Yeah, it's quite strange. This film leaves me with a lot of questions. A lot of questions. How many androids are in this film? Why did the androids suddenly stop having their ability to feel halfway through the film? Why was that enacted by law? Why, when there's a personality chip and there's a reader of said personality chip, can the personality chip not function in a reader? Why does it need a vessel? There's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So do you want to go over the basic plot? Again, your film, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so basically there's the main character.
What is our main character's name?
Why can't I remember? Oh, Treadwell.
Yeah, Treadwell.
Sam Treadwell.
I just keep remembering Chet. Because...
Oh, Chet. Yeah, the most important character in the movie, played by Red Letter Media fan favorite, 80s superstar Robert Zadar.
Yes, Chet.
The man with the chin twice the size of his cranium. No, Robert. This might be one of the first movies Robert Zadar was in, because this was filmed in '85.
Yes,
but I don't think Robert Zadar was really. I mean, he was never really a star. He was always just kind of a nothing actor who was in a lot of crap. But mostly stuff in the '90s, like Samurai Cop. But anyway, so basically, there's this guy Sam. I guess he's like in some kind of important managerial position at a recycling plant.
Not necessarily. I think you get that implication because he's well off and he has a suit. But he could just be the head of extension cords.
Maybe, although the description keeps saying he's a successful businessman.
Yeah.
But then also, and then they kind of, I mean, visually, like they show him when he's in that recycling plant area at the beginning, he's like kind of standing over everyone, like he's on that area perched above them.
This is true.
It kind of implies he's running the place or is in. Well, anyway, that's kind of besides the point. He's basically like a rich guy, and he has a robotic wife.
Yes,
the Cherry 2000. That's the model number. And she breaks down after getting water spilled on her, which seems like kind of a weird...
Yeah.
Because she's a sex robot. I would think, you know...
She would be washable?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's going to be a lot more kinds of fluids getting on her.
This is a clean podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's actually quite weird. They go through, at some point, they go through this, like, cavalcade of robots explaining their different purposes and saying how some of them aren't anatomically correct downstairs and some of them are. The thing I find funny about that is one that they thought Detroit would still be relevant.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny little like future prediction. I mean, all these older movies have all these weird predictions or like just sci-fi things that, you know, didn't
quite turn out. Well, some of them did.
So yeah, it's just kind of funny, like Nevada in this movie, or Eastern California. It's not just Nevada.
Yeah, it's Eastern California. And
Eastern
Nevada.
California in this movie is like a Mad Max wasteland with like violent raider gangs and cults everywhere.
Yes,
that you can't travel through without being attacked by people with machine guns.
As people
and flamethrowers. Don't forget that random flamethrowers that people just wear.
Yeah, and seem to do nothing with. But that I mean, anyone who's traveled the I-15 knows that's the way it still is.
Yeah.
So,
but to get back to the plot. So his robo-wife breaks down, and he can't find he still has like her memory chip and her, I guess you could say like her hard drive, but her actual body is broken down, and he can't find a replacement because she's some kind of rare, not very many have been produced model.
That's one of the weird things about it is it's implied that her memory chip can go in just about any robot, and it's her memory chip that makes her special. But then he's unsatisfied with every other robot, even though
I guess he just wants the one that looks like her, because if you put it in like a different model, like physical model, it would look like a different person.
this is true. But
It kind of reminds me of Ghost in the Shell.
he keeps talking about how much he loves this particular one.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ghost in the Shell.
Oh yeah. There's an episode of Ghost in the Shell that basically is the same plot, where there's some like robot girlfriend model type that's old and outdated, and then there's enthusiasts that really like this particular model type, and I don't want to get into it, but there's the whole plot is based around investigating the specific model of robot girlfriend, robot sex doll. But anyway, so he robot girlfriend broken down. He finds out he can't buy one locally, but he discovers that if he goes out into the zone, into Eastern California wasteland, he might be able to find a working model somewhere. And so he hires a tracker named, what was her name?
Her name was
E. Johnson. E. Johnson. Who's played by more of a robot than Cherry 2000 is.
That's
anyway.
what I was... well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's weird. And basically the whole movie is them just going through the wasteland. They run into kind of this weird cult.
I wouldn't consider it a cult.
I don't know. Just an anarcho tyranny gang, led by the dad from Troll 2.
Knockoff dad from Troll 2.
He looks like him, and I couldn't just. Every time I saw him, I just thought he was gonna threaten everyone else and tell them to tighten their belt so that
you can't on personality, or hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is knockoff dad from Troll 2. He's not actually in Troll 2.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't know the lore of Troll 2 all that well.
Ooh, you gotta watch Best Worst Film.
I'll check it out at some point. Yeah, and that's basically the plot.
Well, okay, so let's go over some details of... Well, you missed out the ending, but I guess we'll talk about the ending when the ending comes. So let's talk about world building here.
Because that's really the movie's strength.
Well, early on, it reminds me of Robot Jocks.
Yeah, it's a little bit satirical.
Well, the blatant recycle, reuse, and the propaganda coming through the radio of...
Yeah, because when they show them in the recycling factories watching like a TV ad talking about how it's good that we all recycle and we're saving so much money and saving the environment and doing all.
I don't think it has anything to do with saving the environment.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me reading. Too much into it, but.
Well, they clearly mention that there's been a huge war and the factories are destroyed, so there is no new stuff coming in. You have to recycle.
Yeah, I guess that plays into the fact that the Cherry 2000 isn't manufactured anymore.
Yeah, because there's the border wars.
Yeah, which they mentioned once, I think.
It's possible they mentioned it earlier on. We did unfortunately talk over the first few minutes, but as the film got rolling, it grabbed our attention more and more. So they have this world building where there's all these red, white, and blue recycling signs, and there's this propaganda, turn in specific items to your local recycling station because we need X, Y, or Z. There's certain things they're asking for.
Yeah, and I should point out the recycling station. It seems like a major, it's a major structure because it isn't just one of those little recycling huts that you find near a major road. It's an entire complex, and there's all these people, well-dressed people.
Yes,
just
everyone's in suits.
Yeah, marching through it with whole shopping carts full of scrap.
That's not exactly scrap. It's things that they intend to refresh and reuse. And That's a thing being brought up more and more throughout the film is people with like new box toaster ovens, like toaster ovens that are still in the box and brand new. Like that's as valuable as gold bars. They mention that later on in the film. But so we have the whole recycling scene, and a couple of the guys' buddies are like, hey, even though your android's dead, let's go out and party, with real women. And they go to a bar. And then this horrifying prediction of the future that has come true is laid forward to us.
Yeah. It's kind of a little
prophetic.
Yeah, well, it reminds me a little bit of, like you said, Robot Jocks. It kind of reminds me of that, or like a RoboCop, or like other Paul Verhoeven kind of movies, where at this bar, strip club,
It's a sex club.
Yeah, it's like a brothel.
It's not a brothel. It's a place where people go to have sex with other people consentingly. Like women go there.
Yeah, well, I guess to get to the point, there's just a shot where Treadwell's coworker is arguing with one of the brothel ladies, and they're both trying to figure out this contract that like a middleman is typing up, and they're arguing over the terms of the contract, like, oh, what you can and can't do, or is this consensual?
Oh no, that's the horrifying thing. It's not a brothel. That's made very clear. This is supposed to be how relationships are in the future.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying this is prophetic, because here in insert current year, that's often talked about is like you need signed documents before you engage in sexual relations.
That makes it even worse. So it's I guess in the future all relationships of any kind have to go through some kind of
middleman
bureaucracy.
Yeah, and they don't mention that at the club. They mention that on the way to the club. Like the guy is giving reasons why he likes Cherry 2000, and he says, I like her personality, and they kind of like look at him askance and like, that's really creepy and weird. And then he's like, well, okay, it's because you don't need to sign paperwork, you don't have to get lawyers involved. And like, you think it's a joke. I
totally missed that.
Oh,
to be honest, to make an excuse here, it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention. It's because the speakers on your TV on your speaker system kept peaking. I couldn't hear what those guys were saying.
Yeah, I had to fiddle with the volume multiple times throughout the film. Whenever anything loud was going on, it was chaotically loud, and whenever anything was soft, it was chaotically soft. But yeah, they were talking about that this is just how relationships are in the future, and so I thought that was funny. And the other thing that was like funny is like there's this whole thing about women showing guys porn of themselves in order to convince the guy to show porn of himself to her. Like,
that's what she was doing. She pulls up like a little hologram kind of thing, and then she shows herself, and Treadwell is just kind of like looking at it, kind of like like anyone listening to this probably would. Like, why are you doing this? And I guess for me that's sort of the thing is this movie. I don't want to say it's jumbled or a mess like the movie, Death Tunnel. Because it's not so much that it doesn't work together. It's just that I feel there isn't enough of the sci-fi stuff.
No, because we get quickly out of that city.
Yeah, it's like that's the first 10 minutes or so of the movie, and then the rest of it, for the most part, is Mad Max, like Diet Mad Max.
To rip off Red Letter Media here, I would say that this is the ultimate shoot the rodeo film.
Yeah, because I meant we've mentioned Mad Max a bunch of times, and it's interesting because it's not nearly as good as like an action movie or a post-apocalyptic movie. I mean, really any of the Mad Maxes, like the Road Warrior.
But this is a $10 million film.
Yeah, it's like the action scenes aren't very well shot, and the characters aren't too good at, like, I guess you could say the visual acting involved in like action movies. But then a lot of the stunts are actually a lot more expensive. A lot of the stuff that you see that goes on is just a lot more expensive than anything you'd expect. Yeah, in any of the 80s Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
In particular, the scene that they have chosen for the back of the DVD case.
Oh, they are so proud of that scene.
Yeah, there's a scene, and I mean, it's like a scene that would be in a big movie. They have one of those like magnetic crane things that you use at a junkyard to like pick up metallic objects. They pick up the car that the two main characters are driving in, and they're firing at it with rocket launchers, which somehow don't blow up the car.
Yeah,
even
they
though
don't
like,
do anything.
even though they're like anti-tank missile launchers, they don't blow up the car. But then when Treadwell and Red Hair pull out E. Johnson, I don't remember names too well. When they pull out their own rocket launchers, they blow up everything.
Buildings.
They blow up a butte, as you said.
Yes.
They blow up this big rock formation, and which kind of was shocking, because we were like, how did this is like a still like a low budget movie relatively speaking. How did they blow up an entire butte?
The thing I didn't get is how did they get the rights to blow something like this up? This is like, one of those stereotypical things you would see on a postcard for like Zion or something like that.
Yeah.
Like 80-foot tall rock structure that's been there for millennia, and they blow it up for Cherry 2000.
Yeah, so we were shocked by that. I mean, and that must have been, I'm sure some, like environmentalist or preservationist groups probably were throwing up at the idea of that.
It does get explained though.
Yeah, we figured it out. We looked it up. It's because there was the entire thing, blowing up the butte and the crane and all the construction work in that scene, that wasn't made for the movie. That was just there was construction work going on with the Hoover Dam.
And they just shot it.
Yeah, and just so happens that this movie was being shot at the same time, and so they wrote that into the movie. They shot the butte being blown up by the construction workers for the Hoover Dam. They used the crane that was all set up for the car scene. They even dropped the car into one of the Hoover Dam's
spillways.
That's what they're called? Okay.
Yeah.
One of the big tubes where all the water drains through.
Yeah, it's if the reservoir were to flood over.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's like, wow, like all this work for this, and then just this little movie kind of snuck that in.
Yeah, this released on VHS film.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like not a great movie. Like the lead is a little flat, and then
the lead is dead flat. But I do like E. Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson. She's visually distinctive, but her character, she acts like a robot, even though she's not a robot.
She acts like a twerp. I still argue though that she is a robot, but.
That's your fan theory.
That is my fan fiction for this.
Matt Pat fan theory.
But hey, that's just a theory.
Yeah, it's all kind of character-wise is all a little bit flat and corny. Like the villain is kind of a dick, but
yeah,
he's not.
He's not sadistic. You said that while we were watching the film. He's a douchebag, but he's not sadistic. There is a scene where he kills a girl. That seems like completely unwarranted, where he just shoots a girl in the head. But then it's said in the credits that girl was a robot.
Yeah, but we only know that because of the credits. So
yeah, it's kind of implied by the film because there's this young, attractive woman living in the middle of nowhere with this old, crusty guy.
True, but then at the same time, she doesn't really act like a robot in the same way that Cherry 2000 did.
No, and that's why
like at the end of the movie, Cherry 2000, when they, I guess you could say, resurrect her, when they put her memory chip in a new model,
she acts dead.
Yeah, she acts stupid.
Yeah, and that's why. So at the beginning of the film, she's a believable woman, and at the end of the film, she's this automaton, and you realize it's so that they can have an excuse to leave her behind. Spoiler alert, they abandoned Cherry 2000.
Yeah, Treadwell, and Johnson
Timothy Treadwell
find love in the post-apocalyptic wasteland of Barstow in Las Vegas.
It was Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But I argue that the girl who gets shot in the head, that E. Johnson, and our antagonist's girlfriend are all robots.
Oh, that could be argued for.
Like the whole sandwich making scene. Like there's there's this reoccurring theme of men asking their robots to make them sandwiches. This is a thing that happens in this film. At the beginning of the film, our lead asks Cherry 2000 to make him dinner. I can't remember if it's making sandwiches, but maybe it is.
She makes a burger, but a burger is
a sandwich.
Yeah,
That's
a
a type
burger
of
is a
sandwich.
kind of sandwich. So
It's a kind of
it's close
sandwich.
enough.
And then the second, our antagonist asks his woman to make him sandwiches, and she does. And then the guy, the old crusty guy with the girl by the lake that says no fishing, he asks her to make sandwiches, and she refuses. But so there's this trend of men asking women to make sandwiches that I think implies a robot.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's
it's a
like-
recurring joke.
Well, I don't think it's a joke.
Yeah, it's kind of passed off as a joke, but I mean,
And then there's the whole thing with the girl at the golf club, our antagonist's lady friend, going like, "Oh, we used to date," and so like, I almost wanted to say she was a model of Cherry 2000, but like, yeah,
yeah. Well, it's also a little bit confusing because she hasn't been introduced until that point. And
no,
yeah, I'm like, who is this? Why
is this?
Yeah, why? Who is this character? Why does she know Treadwell?
yeah. The cut between the battle at the Hoover Dam and showing up at Sky Ranch. Was so jarring to me that I no longer recognized our lead, and it took me like 10 minutes to figure out that was Treadwell.
Yeah, well, and I mean, he was dressed kind of like
Hawaiian-ish.
yeah. Well, he blended in with all the other characters. Although that's an interesting to get into kind of the visuals of the movie. That was an interesting aspect of the movie. I thought was the villains aren't they dress in the most benign way possible. Like
Yeah.
the villain is this guy named Lester.
Yes.
His name is just Lester.
Yes.
Like, that's the name of the villain, who is the quote sadistic psychopath.
Yeah, they call him a psychopath, and all he does is up until that point, what we see him do is put some guy in a car and shove him off a cliff. But we don't know the context.
Yeah.
So, which, by the way, the car does not explode when it hits the ground, which was an interesting thing. So we don't know if the context there was like, oh, maybe this was a bad guy. We don't know. And then later on he says, trackers are not welcome. If we find you, we will kill you, or something to that effect. So there's a warning sign. And then a tracker has the gall to show up at his home. And then has the gall to lie to him. So he then kills said tracker. So up to that point, we're like, okay, we've seen one weird death that we can't determine whether it was warranted or not. But by the logic of the film, the second death was warranted. So, and he doesn't like take sadistic pleasure in either death that we know of.
I mean, he kind of does. When he executes the tracker.
Yeah, he does it with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, well, like, he doesn't just, shoot him like a normal execution. Like, he has to put, like, a comical bag over his head with a target, and then he shoots him in the head with a bow and arrow, and it's like he makes, like, a game out of it.
Okay, you're selling me on that.
I mean, it's still pretty light compared to, a lot of other movies. Yeah, like, he's not
like filleting people alive.
Yeah,
or
I mean, you
raping
compare this
or-
to like the original Mad Max with the toe cutter, where he like burns a guy alive or kills Max's family.
or a Road Warrior where there's like the random raping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the original has all the rape and the gay rape and everything. Whereas this, Cherry 2000, it's kind of comical. It's like almost like a PG Mad Max.
Yeah. Was there blood in this film?
Yeah, was there even blood?
Guy gets shot in the back.
I was
with
almost going
blood.
to say there was blood coming out of that one girl's nose, but then I realized that was death
tunnel.
tunnels.
Yeah, so we really do. That's one of the things about After Action. It's immediately after we watch the film So sometimes they do blend together. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's blood in this film at all. Yes, there is. When Lester gets beat up, Lester bleeds.
Oh, yeah, he does bleed.
Yes, he bleeds.
Yeah.
I do have to point out one of my favorite post-apocalyptic tropes happens in this film, which is people busting through skylights to go into a formerly above-ground building that is now currently underground. I don't know why I like that, but I do.
Yeah. It's in kind of a neat setting, too. It's like they couldn't... I don't know if it was planned this way from the start. Like, they probably couldn't afford to shoot in Las Vegas itself, so Las Vegas in this movie is completely covered with sand, with only like the very tops of buildings or some of the statues or casino lights sticking out of the sand.
And it was apparent that stuff was apparent, like the interior shots was apparently shot at the Citadel.
Yeah, the Citadel in L.A.
Sure,
it's in L.A. County.
Anaheim, maybe.
It might be. Oh yeah, for some reason
might be.
For some reason that they keep referencing Anaheim. Well, I mean, it's where Treadwell lives. Our main protagonist lives in the movie. But
is he our protagonist, or is E. Johnson our protagonist?
He's our protagonist because he's what
he
moves
is the arc.
plot. Yeah, he's what gets the plot going, even though he's not on the cover. And I mean, I could see why. I mean, Johnson's more standout.
Yeah, she works. She works. She's funny. She's, like I said, twerpish.
Yeah.
So, there's this kind of cool connection where they were remodeling the Citadel, which I was unaware the Citadel was formerly a tire factory, and they were remodeling it to become a mall. And so a lot of the interior shots that we see throughout the film were apparently shot there, which is kind of cool. So I would imagine that that's also where the recycling center was shot. Just like that totally looks like a mall.
Yeah.
Tire
that is something funny. Is this movie, for a low budget movie, has a pretty good variety of locations, like the recycling plant or the bar, or Treadwell's house at the very beginning, or the robot shop, or the glory hole.
Oh yeah, there's a bar called the Glory Hole.
No, it's not just the bar. It's the little town.
Yeah, it's the whole town.
It's the border town. It's called the Glory Hole.
And someone made a neon sign that says Glory Hole.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of locations. I mean, I liked Lester's weird little cult encampment full of 70s
cool.
futurist bubble dome houses.
Yeah, these little geodesic
It's in the middle of the desert.
Balls.
And there's just umbrellas, and it says Sky Ranch, and like
it's a golf course.
Yeah,
it's a former golf course.
Yeah, it's funny. The villains, like, I just love the way they look because they don't look like villains. They look like they're part of like a country club or something, or like. They all have they all dress like they're going golfing. They're all wearing Hawaiian shirts and have like Mr. Magoo hats. And it's just funny seeing that in a post-apocalyptic setting. It's like a funny contrast.
There are apparently several sky ranches out there that are in California, oddly enough, that are golf courses. Just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not exactly an uncommon word.
No, it's weird. It's weird though. But yeah, I like their whole theming. They seem to be making a good go of it in the wasteland. They got bees.
Yeah. There's a lot of neat little details like that. Like when Treadwell and E. Johnson make their escape from from Lester's little encampment. Treadwell makes a point to burn down all their vehicles with gasoline, and then he throws the rest of the gasoline inside one of the little bubble dome buildings that has like a bee farm in it, like a bunch of hives.
Apiary.
Is that what that's called?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and that's just a nice little detail. Like, this movie's full of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I also love the comment. It's really subtle, but I love it. Where she says, like, water is really hard to come by out here, and you don't see it. But when she says that, in the background, there's a little potted fern in the little geodesic dome, implying that this little area, this sky ranch has enough water that they can justify, having indoor plants. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, not only that, but there's like a little pool.
Oh, there's totally a pool.
Yeah, there's a pool out there.
There was a lot of craft in this. Like, there's this guy, this Six-Finger Jack, Six-Finger Jim.
Kind of like he's like a hermit kind of character.
Yeah, but they imply like he's super wealthy and all that, and that's where like he has all this new stuff. Like he has this hideaway that's covered in astroturf, and he has all this brand new stuff in boxes, which is apparently a big deal. So
yeah, that whole aspect of whatever the war was, destroying all the factories and making it so recycling was a necessity and refurbishing was a necessity.
Not talked about.
Yeah, a lot of that, it's like the world building stuff is there, but it should have been pushed to the forefront just a little bit more.
Yeah, like you were talking about, like, why does our mild-mannered, office working guy happen to know, like, fully how to use firearms and is tactical and is capable in a battle? And I'm like, well, even if they just threw in a line about him being a soldier, it'd be fine. And eventually they throw in a line like, oh yeah, I flew one of these in the border wars.
Yeah, it should have been brought up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But also it should have been brought up earlier. I mean, maybe it was and I just didn't hear it.
Possible.
But it is kind of weird because at the beginning he's just this white collar worker guy, just dressed in a suit, with a clipboard, and then as soon as he hatches the whole plan to go out into the zone to get a new Cherry 2000, he shows up at like a bar at the glory hole.
Yep.
And
it's called the glory hole.
Yeah, and but he has like a bandolier and he's cradling a shotgun.
Yep. As are like half the people in the
it's
bar.
just a funny transition though, just because he just has it. And
yep.
There's nothing really established with that. I mean, they show him like
they don't have time to
they show him packing all the guns, but it's just kind of weird.
Into his trike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This movie has a lot of funny little like failed, I guess you could say, like incorrect feature predictions.
Yes, like the flashlights that do nothing.
Yeah, the goofy 70s plastic flashlights with Saturn rings around them.
Yep.
Or and as we said, the trikes. Although I guess those aren't that unrealistic.
No, there's a guy down the street from me that sells trikes. It's a thing.
Yeah, all the cars, other than E. Johnson's sports car, are
wrecked.
Yeah, wrecked or are just these tiny little, super efficient but kind of crappy, trikes or little cars.
E. Johnson's car, though, is a trashed Mustang.
Yeah.
Like, it's not supposed to be nice.
Yeah.
It's like a 66 or 65 Mustang, and I guess it's supposed to be, 50 years old.
Yeah.
Because it's,
and then she has her goofy 80s sci-fi controls that have been inserted into the inside of the car that I'm not sure what they do.
She's a tracker. That's why she has it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that part's explained, and it kind of comes up a little bit. Like, there's a part where Treadwell crashes the car, but before he crashes it, it makes like a beeping noise, like it's detecting that he's about to run into something.
Yeah. When E. Johnson is driving on the road at night, he says, "How do you see?" And she says, "Oh, I drive mostly by feel." And he's like, "By feel?" And she goes, "Yeah, mostly." And so I led that to believe that the car was like letting her know if she was on the right path so she could run without lights.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of neat little details like that. It's just it's like the movie it's like a B minus. But it could be an A if it just pushed the little details a little bit further, or it had some more like, what am I trying to... Like, okay, like the car. She has that beat-up Mustang, and it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. This rigged-up, juiced-up Mustang with kind of some enlarged tires and all these controls that she's inserted, and it has, like, that nitro boost thing.
Yeah.
If it went a little bit further, like, maybe it can drop, like, caltrops. Like, there's a car chase scene, and she drops some caltrops on
That would be cool.
and spikes the wheels of the car behind her, or or it has some kind of, or just like a gun on the car.
Yeah, like, a gun that pops out of the back, that's tracked by a computer in the front of the car, and shoots booze at the opposing cars that are chasing behind it. It's a callback to a film from yesterday.
Yeah, just little things like that. Although I think another problem with the movie is the action scenes just are kind of awkward.
Yeah. It looks like they had one go. Like, they're like, we can shoot this once, so it better be right. And so everyone's playing it real safe.
Yeah, especially that crane scene. I mean, which obviously they only had one real
they only
chance
had one
with
real
that.
go.
It's just kind of awkward because so they're driving up the construction site in their car and they're not going very fast, and then the crane swoops down, like people are firing on them, the enemies are firing on them, and then the crane is coming into sight, and then instead of like panicking or this being like a dangerous situation, she just kind of lets the crane pick her up.
Yeah, she's like, this is the best way to get across the river.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't tell me, you've done this 100 times. And she goes, yeah, something like that. I'm like, really? Really? You've done this like 100 times?
But that's like such a specific situation, and I would think if she did that once before,
They would know.
yeah, they would know, let's not use the crane, let's just like spike their tires or like shoot them with rocket launchers that actually work.
Yeah, or
and
just,
then
like, not use the crane. They're stuck there.
Yeah, and so they're floating in midair like an easy target with this crane. That I'm not totally sure why they're using the crane.
I don't know why they just don't drop them.
Yeah, and why don't they just drop them? Because that would just destroy the car. I mean, it worked on that other car.
Yeah.
On that truck that they dropped those other guys down.
Yes, it did.
With.
Dropping is functional. Gravity works in this universe.
It's like kind of like a lot of this movie is kind of like anticlimax because the lead up to that scene is you see some of the Sky. Were they the same Sky Ranch guys, or were they just unrelated?
They had a whole sign that said they're Sky Ranch.
They had so you see them like loading rocket launchers, like they're looking through binoculars and they see her car, and then you see a guy like load a rocket into an RPG.
They even call back to Lester. They're like, hey, so-and-so's here, the redhead, with a white male. Yeah, they say that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird that they say that, and then Lester calls the guy like a cracker or something like that.
And he's like,
but he's white with blonde. He's whiter than the other guy is, blonde hair.
That doesn't matter.
There's like one black guy in the whole movie. No, I guess there's two black. No, there's three.
And the wannabe Arab.
Yeah. So I don't know why he would say that.
And the Chinese woman who runs the place with the cat and the. Oh
God. Yeah. There's so many weird details. There's the Chinese innkeeper, I guess she is, and she has a cat in like one of those like 5
gallon water jugs. Yeah, it's a 5-gallon water jug.
Yeah, and it's just in there.
5-gallon carboy, I think is the technical term.
But back to the weird crane scene. It's like a cool setup. They're hanging on this crane, and it's like tense. But then when the bad guys start firing rockets, like anti-tank rocket launchers at their car, it just sort of poofs. Yep. It hits the car and just kind of poofs off of it.
Yeah, it doesn't even shake the car, which makes sense in terms of filming the movie, but my God, does that look awful. One cool thing, though, is that the car, as it takes damage, will keep that damage throughout the rest of the film, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the setup is there, but then the execution is just...
The way to do it, if what they should have done is, like you said while we're watching it, just have the missiles miss. Or if they couldn't do that, they should be using guns, and she should say something like, get down, the doors are armored, but the glass isn't.
You know what would have been a funnier scene would be just have them have guns, and they're firing at the car, but it's an armored car, so you see the bullets bounce off.
That's what I just said.
Well, okay, but let me go a little bit further.
Okay.
And you could have trouble panicking, like, oh, they're hitting us, but then she says, oh, it's an armored car. And then they pull out, and one of the bad guys pulls out a rocket launcher, like, oh, they've got a rocket. This is real dangerous. And he fires, and he misses, and maybe it blows something big up.
Yeah, the beam.
But then they pull out rocket launchers, and she pulls out the even bigger rocket launcher. Like she had.
Yeah, she had a step up.
Yeah, she had like a tow missile launcher or something like that, like this huge one, and it blows up the whole butte. Like that would be a better way to do that scene, because you would kind of, I mean, even though
you have an escalation of force.
Yeah, an escalation of force. Like it wouldn't really make the tension any better, just because you're basically showing that the good guys have better weapons.
Stuff, yeah.
But at least it would be it would make sense. Like it would be kind of, because it's just so weird when you see all these. There's one shot where there's like 6 or 7 of the bad guys. They all have
RPGs.
They all have like the missile launchers, and they all fire them in a row like it's the 1800s firing like a volley of musket balls, and they all either miss or just kind of poof off the car.
Yeah, it is weird.
It's just the scene is just so baffling to me, because they have all the stuff. They have all these rocket launchers like in the movie, and they have all this pyrotechnics, and they have the car hanging off the crane, and like all this stunt work. But then it's all just like, yeah, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not an exciting scene. It's an interesting scene, but not an exciting scene. The fight scene at the end is much more exciting, as you will.
Relatively speaking, yeah, it's like the movie has all like the world building and kind of the, maybe humor is the wrong term, but kind of just funny, quirky, weird stuff.
True.
Like when they're in the inn, when he's before he talks to Brian James from Blade Runner. There's like all those weird cowboy characters,
yes,
like cyberpunk cowboys.
Yeah, and with metallic pants.
Yeah, and when he first enters the inn, you see who I think is Robert Zadar, even though I don't think it's supposed to be the same character.
It is totally Robert Zadar,
yeah.
And actually, I think it is supposed to be the same character.
It's just a coincidence. He just stopped by the glory hole before he went back to Sky Ranch. But you see in that inn, there's like a bunch of like virtual reality, like bulky virtual reality headsets attached to those pillars, and there's a guy just kind of lounging in a chair with one of them over his head, one of the headsets over his head. Like neat little details like that.
Yeah.
It's just that when the movie tries to have action, it's just kind of awkward, and it doesn't really work.
The most tension-ridden thing in this film is you realize pretty quickly that he's going to have to somehow ditch Cherry 2000 and get with E. Johnson. So the question becomes, why and how is he going to ditch Cherry 2000? And my prediction was they were going to get her and she was going to get shot or something like that, and then that would be that, and he would go like,
yeah. Instead, he just kind of drops her off, and then she just,
go get me a Pepsi.
Yeah, he asks her to get a Pepsi, and then she's like, okay, and then she just stands there and doesn't seem to acknowledge that he's flying off in a plane.
Yeah,
and then she sits by the other by Lester's wife or robot wife, whatever she was.
I'm gonna really say she's a robot, because
and then
and
then she looks at a sandwich and says it's pretty.
Yeah, she tears apart a sandwich and says it's pretty. At the same time, Lester has just died, and like Lester's gang's like, hey lady, your husband just died, and she's like, it's okay, let's have sandwiches, which makes me think she's totally a Cherry 2000.
Yeah, it's like there's some like nuanced stuff that like you could read into it like that. It's just there's not quite enough of it, and it's not really.
It says she is in the credits.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay, there you go. But
yeah, it says like Lester's android or something like that.
Yeah, maybe the script was more clear, and then it just didn't really make it into the final movie so much.
It says there's 2 androids listed that aren't Cherry 2000. There's like Lester's android or something like that, and then they say Scabs.
Scabs? Who is Scabs?
The crusty old guy.
Oh,
that's why I'm saying the other girl's an android. And but you wouldn't know that from the film. You have to watch the credits.
Yeah,
which I guess is part of the film. Does that count?
Yeah, and that's another thing, is it's almost like do androids dream of electric sheep? I mean, I guess you could say Blade Runner as well, but it makes me think a little bit more of the book Androids, just because of a bigger part of that book was trying to figure out who's an android and who's not. I mean, that played into Blade Runner a little bit, but Blade Runner, it's made apparent from the start who the androids are.
More or less, yes.
The book had kind of a mystery element to it.
What I'm really getting from this film, and from what little we've looked into it, is there was a ton of chaos. From the completion of the film in 1985 until its total release in 1988, there was a lot of fiascos where it was like partially released in the U.S. and then partially not released in the U.S. There's chaos with this film's production and release, and so I think that has a lot to do with why some things are stilted, is maybe there was some reverse editing. One thing, though, that I want to point out is this film was produced by Orion Pictures, and they dropped the name of the production film in the film.
Yeah. Treadwell sneaks up on Robert Zadar, and Robert Zadar sneaks up on Treadwell, rather, as he's trying to make his escape, and Treadwell says, "Oh, I'm just looking at the stars. Oh, you could see Orion."
Yeah.
And when Robert Zadar looks, he punches him in the neck and knocks him out.
I just thought that was awkwardly working in the movie title, as they would say, except working in the movie production company, which was actually clever in a way. Like, Orion is a decent one to, do that with.
Yeah. At least they're not saying, "Hey, look, it's the New Line Cinema constellation."
Yeah. That would be a lot harder. Or MGM or something like that. Well, anyway. Anything else you have to say on Cherry 2000?
Yeah, it's like there's so much, but it's all just the details of the movie. I guess final thoughts. Well, I don't know. Is there anything
about it? I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Apparently there's a making of documentary on the DVD.
Yeah,
I could check that out sometime.
That would actually be worth watching.
I should probably watch that at some point.
That would be a really weird after action to watch it. That would be kind of meta.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we've covered just about everything.
Well, thank you very much, Jack, for joining me tonight and introducing both me and my audience to things that are not shark films.
Yeah, I'm glad I could inject some variety into the show. Yeah, if you're a fan of post-apocalyptic movies, or just kind of weird, goofy 80s sci-fi or low-budget 80s, 70s movies. It's an 80s movie, but it kind of also feels like a 70s movie at the same time. Like some of the production quality.
Though I think you're really underselling it when you say it's low budget. I would say it's budgeted.
Yeah.
It's not a high budget film, but it's not a low budget film.
It's like the high end of low budget. Let's put it that way.
$10 million in 1985. That ain't bad.
Yeah.
That ain't bad. Remember, like, Halloween was 1983, right?
Yeah.
Was it? No.
Oh.
It might be 1979.
I'm not sure.
I think Halloween is 1979. Either way, Halloween was filmed around this time. I say around in air quotes. And that had a budget of like $230,000. And one of the Jason films was filmed around this time. And, like the first one. And it had a budget of like $300,000. And to put this in perspective, the Bond films, which were coming out around this time, had budgets of like $10 million or $15 million. So, like, this is not a low-budget film comparatively, from what little I know of film history.
I guess, definitely relative to the era it was made in.
$10 million is a low-budget film today.
Yeah, I guess it's just a little bit weird.
It's filmed really well. It's lit really well. The acting is not good. You're right about that, but
yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't. It seems like it was trying to be a Mad Max ripoff, and it just didn't have the time to shine. It was in production hell. There was a lot of chaos.
Yeah, that's the big part. Is it was straight to video. It never got a theatrical release, and it was only ever released in North America and Japan.
Yeah, it apparently eventually got a Europe release, but it wasn't until much later.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when it was released, it was only North America and Japan, which is weird.
So yeah, Cherry 2000, post-apocalypse, sci-fi, action. Check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. All right, thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this this cavalcade of interestingness, maybe.
Cavalcade of cult movie. that came after a really terrible movie that no one should ever watch.
Definitely go check out the trailer for Cherry 2000. You'll know whether or not you like the film from that. All right, until next time, see you out there.